Order the meeting of the Public Safety Committee for Tuesday, October 25th, 2022. I'm Rick Leffler. Order the meeting of the Public Safety Committee for Tuesday, October 25th, 2022. I'm Rick Leffler, Chair. And let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mrs. Down, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I'd be happy to. I pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Acadian, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Captain Malott,
Rob Malott here.
Chief, is it Mall? Is that the correct pronunciation?
Here.
Captain Benfield,
Present.
Scott, Commissioner Rover,
Here.
and I apologize, that's a committee member. Committee member Bercuda,
Here.
Vice Chair Hightower,
Present.
and Chair Leffler.
Here. Okay, but before we get to special orders and business and presentations, and we do have a special presentation, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to bring up the matter of our current, or former current committee member, Bill Hanrahan. Has had to resign from the committee, at least for now. He says he'd love to circle back at some time in the future, but as we know, he was a retired judge, and they had an issue in Wisconsin where he was from. The cases were getting backlogged, and so they called several retired judges and said, could you step in and help us clear that calendar, which he offered to do, which I think is an extremely important job to do. So he's going to be doing that for the next several months at least, and so we've lost him. It's unfortunate. And we're looking at perhaps a process of filling that chair. We did have a couple of candidates the last time. And so the city manager is trying to figure out if there's a process for maybe speeding up getting another member. And with that being said, we also would like to welcome Chief Mall, who's going to be our ad hoc member from the fire department. He's got some big shoes to fill from Rob Capobianco, but just talking to him for a couple of minutes, I think he's capable of doing that. So we welcome you, Chief. It's a great committee here. We get a lot of work done. We get great participation from fire, police, and marine safety. And so we welcome you, and you're going to be a valuable member, I know. So thank you and welcome. With that, we'll go to special orders of business and presentations. A presentation by Dwayne Cave, Senior Public Affairs Manager of San Diego Gas and Electric.
Shall I introduce him?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Dwayne Cave is in his 45th year with Sempra Utilities. He's a Senior Public Affairs Manager for SDG&E and serves as the company's prime contact for cities in the unincorporated areas of South Orange County. In his capacity, he represents SDG&E through active interaction with elected officials, city staff, business, and community leaders, charitable and non-charitable organizations. Now, Dwayne is known for his interest in community involvement, which includes more than 30 years as a volunteer umpire for Little League Baseball and high school baseball programs, and as a high school football referee. This past August, Dwayne umpired in the Little League World Series Senior Division Tournament in Easley, South Carolina. And earlier this month, he officiated the Mater Dei versus St. John Bosco High School football game.
Oh,
That's a biggie.
that was a good game.
And then on top of that, since 2014, he served as director, and he's currently vice president on the board of the Molten Nagel Water District. Thank you for coming and giving us this information.
Well, thank you very much, Nick. Thank you, Chair, committee members. I'm real happy to be here today, so thank you very much. I also have to say that my umpiring career, it was with Rob's son, who played at Laguna Beach High School, and I umpired his games a couple times this last year. He's a good ball player too. He does a great job. So I really enjoy doing that. So as Nick said, I've been with SDG&E and SoCal Gas for over 45 years now. And so at this time, I'm a senior public affairs manager, but prior to that, I started my career in the construction end of SoCal Gas. Started right here in Orange County, north part of Orange County, and I was one of the guys digging holes and welding pipes and doing all that stuff. And so I really have a good background as far as what it takes to build the infrastructure and what goes on there. And I think that really helps me in my job today as a public affairs manager. And so hopefully the presentation today, we're talking about emergency preparedness, but as we talk about emergency preparedness, this is nothing that you've not heard before. And so I just want to tell you a couple stories as we're going along, and hopefully maybe we can get a little bit of feedback and questions as we're moving along. I think that would keep it going and be a lot more entertaining for all of us. So we go to the next slide here. So what we want to talk about is personal preparedness. And so the topics we're going to cover is kind of know your risks, make a plan, build a kit, stay informed. So those are the key things that we're looking for. So let's go know your risk. Next slide, please. So what are the risks that we have here in San Clemente? It's the same almost everywhere. We can have fire, we can have flood, we can have earthquakes. And so those are things that we need to make sure that we're being prepared for. And so I'm kind of thinking back, what's the risk that we see all the time here? And what have I dealt with in my career? The one thing we always talk about is earthquakes. Everybody likes to talk about earthquakes. Did you know we had one in California today? It was a 5.1 in the San Jose area. So earthquakes are happening all the time, and there's no warning. The earthquake I like to talk about was back in 1994. It's January 17th, and for that one, that was a Northridge earthquake. And when that thing hit, I lived in Yucaipa. I worked for SoCal Gas at the time, and that thing shook me out of bed. And I remember it was 4:30 in the morning. And so what do? You go downstairs, you turn on the TV, you try to see what's going on and where the heck did it really hit. I know it hit me hard in Yucaipa, but where was it really bad? And so as I was watching TV, one of the first things they showed, and who remembers that earthquake? Who was around here? So when you look at the TV, one of the first things they showed you was the corner of Rinaldi and Balboa. And on that one, that's a street where you had a distribution gas line, about 6-inch. We had a large diameter, high pressure gas line that traversed the street. We had a regular distribution water main and a large transmission water main that went down that street. And what happened was there was a big fissure in the street. It went all the way across the street, through the lots on either side and into the alleys behind it, and it opened up 18 inches. When it opened up 18 inches, those pipes just opened up. We had water running down the street. And then there's a guy, I didn't have this in the slide, but here's a picture. That's what we saw in the news. That's flames right there. And there's a pickup truck right here. It was white before it burned. The guy was driving up the street, high on something. It ignited the natural gas pipeline, and so you see a big flame there. And so it was burning, and that thing burned. Most of the days is going through. When I came up to the site, I was there for 3 weeks straight. Stayed in a hotel in South Pasadena while we're doing the work, and so I was away from my home, away from my family. And my job was to start restoring gas, start getting the mains and services back together again. But what was interesting about this earthquake is that where the fissure opened up 18 inches, if you went 880 feet down the street, there was another fissure, and we dug up the pipeline there, and the pipelines there were accordion 18 inches. So it just shows you the power that we have of earthquakes and what kind of damage it can do. And so when we talk about preparing for earthquakes, what you want to do is make sure that you're prepared for 72 hours. You think 72 hours will really take care of it? It won't. But 72 hours is always a good start for someone to be prepared. Again, I was gone for 3 weeks. We had people that were without gas, without electricity, and without water for all of those 3 weeks. And so, it's just interesting. You just want to make sure that you're prepared for the worst when it goes through. Another issue that we had was, let's just talk about electricity and blackouts. And so we all go through every once in a while an unplanned outage, electric outage. You see that the lights go off, and that can happen. And so you kind of think what you want to do to prepare for that. And so you want to make sure that you have maybe some generators backup or something else that can keep you going. But I want to talk about an outage that we had that was unique here in South Orange County in San Diego. It occurred back on September 8th, 2011. And we had a huge outage that started in Yuma, Arizona. Does anybody remember that? Who was here in San Clemente at that time? So all of SDG&E service territory in South Orange County was completely out. The entire county of San Diego was out. And we had portions of Riverside County and Mexico and Arizona that were also out. It happened when one of the workers was doing some maintenance on the line, and then we had an issue that occurred, and then from that issue, we just had one thing after another occurred, and it took out the entire system. And so for that happened at 4:38. Was it 4:38? It was 4:38 in the afternoon. 3:38 in the afternoon. 7 million people were out of electricity when this occurred. And so here, unplanned outage, we had absolutely no idea. Mr. Mayor, how you doing? Hello. So, again, unplanned outage, no idea that was going to go on. And so what happened? What did people have to do? We had problems with traffic signals going out. We had people, again, electricity in their house was gone, and traffic lights, I think, was one of the biggest things that we had. So a lot of the city signals that we have here are on battery backup, which helps. Along the freeways, they work for a couple hours where they actually switch from green to amber to red. But most of them go to on and off when that occurs. They just go on and off. That will keep the battery backup going longer. We were out of electricity that night until early the next day. Orange County was one of the first places that came back on. So again, a major electric outage. And we're preparing for outages all the time. Has anybody heard of a public safety power shutoff? So that's something that right now we're in the PSPS, public safety power shutoff season at this time. This is when Santa Ana winds come through. So we've been very lucky. Last year we had absolutely no shutoffs in Orange County, and the year before we had a threat of an outage in Orange County, but it didn't occur. And we're really lucky here in South Orange County for the SDG&E service territory because of the topography that we have, that the winds don't blow through here as badly as they do in other places in SDG&E service territory. If you go down into the East County, Julian and Boulevard and other places, the wind can blow 50, 80, 100 miles an hour. In South Orange County, we really don't have that type of problems. But I know that the city here is prepared for any kind of a power outage that may occur with a public safety power shutoff. Matter of fact, a couple of years ago, we did have a threat where we thought it was going to affect San Clemente for the first time, and SDG&E brought up a mobile trailer that we set up at Vista Hermosa Sports Park, and it was set up in case we had an outage that people could go there and get their cell phones recharged and have communications and other things. So we try to work with the city when we have an issue that we know may be coming up in the near future. So anyway, public safety power shutoffs, it's that season right now. We've had a couple warnings and some issues up in the Southern California Edison service territory, but so far nothing down here. Hopefully, knock on wood, we'll go through another season without any issues. Let's go to the next slide, please. So, just back to the regular presentation is is once you know your risk, how do you make a plan? You know, what do you need to do as a responsible person within your own home, within your own community? One thing is make sure you have an evacuation plan. Make sure that you know if you need to leave your home, leave your neighborhood, how are you gonna do that? Make sure that you have at least 2 ways out. It's always an important thing. And then a communications plan. If we have a major earthquake, a lot of times the communication goes down, the cell phones are overloaded. Do you have other ways that you can communicate? In the old days, we used to say, go to the payphone, they always work. We don't have any more payphones anymore. So communications makes it very, very difficult. But what you want to do is set up something outside of Southern California where family members can communicate and get back to each other. If you're at home, and I think about this for the Northridge earthquake, you sleep with shoes under your bed, because when that shaking starts and the lights go off and there's broken glass, you know, you want to make sure that you can get safely from your bedroom anywhere that you need to go. And when you make a plan, does it include your pets? Because the pets are the ones that we love more than maybe some of the kids that we have, so we want to make sure that they're taken care of. And then we want to make sure that we're practicing the plan. If you have, especially with kids, make sure you run through some drills. They love to do that, and it makes it really simple when something actually happens. So go to the next slide. So now you need to build a kit. You know, what do you need? You know, what kind of supplies do you want? And where do you want to keep it too? So food and water, again, at least 72 hours worth of food and water, but as we know, you're probably going to need longer than that. Extra clothes, closed-toed shoes is what you actually want. And you can go through the list there: batteries, phone chargers, medications, tools, pet food. You've seen the list over and over again, but a lot of times people know what they need to put together, but then when you ask a group how many people have actually set up a emergency kit, and you see very few hands go up. So again, it's something that you want to make sure that we're talking to people about all the time. Next. Okay, and then where can you get information? That's the most important thing. When the Northridge earthquake hit, I went right downstairs, I turned on the TV, and I wanted to see what was the latest, what's the latest coming through. Because you know that news helicopters are going up at any time, and they're gonna start covering it right away. You know, I listened to one of the radio stations that's easy to listen to here for Orange County, LA, KFI, because it can go almost anywhere, 640. Kogo 600 down in San Diego is another excellent radio station that you can listen to. And then, you know, we have our iPhones, we have our computers, and they're going to keep running even if you don't have electricity. So again, have an SDG&E website on for media sites. Orange County Fire Authority has a great website that you can go to, along with Alert OC and Ready OC. Those are places where you can get ready information. And phone apps too. SDG&E has a great phone app to let people know what's going on. And what I use today is I use the USGS app, and that showed me about the earthquake today. So again, that gives you a lot of good information, you know, good for the what you need today. Next one. And you know, just being prepared is just an important thing to do. So I'm open for any questions or comments that you may have, except for Mayor James.
You can't catch a break, can you? I've got one. We're looking at that huge hurricane that went through Florida, and I picked up a map of outages, electrical, basically, and it went right through the middle of Florida. And I'm not saying that we're going to have a hurricane anytime soon, but I'm sure that with earthquakes and tsunamis and other things that have come along, how prepared is the SDG&E as far as electrical resilience, as it were?
I think we're very well prepared. We have a great emergency operations center, and we train and drill constantly. because emergency response is really, that's key to our day in and day out work that we have. Matter of fact, when Orange County Fire Authority goes to a burning home, who's one of the first people there to assist with them? It's San Diego Gas and Electric. They're shutting off electricity to make sure it's safe in that area. When I worked for SoCal Gas, we went there, we'd shut off the gas before we went in if the fire authority didn't already have that off. And when you look at restoring, and we look at from generation to transmission to distribution. And so in South Orange County, we have no generation. There's nothing that generates electricity. So we depend on our transmission lines to bring electricity in. And in San Clemente, you see the transmission lines, they go right through the middle of the town, through Talega, and all the way up into San Juan Capistrano and beyond. Those are our 230 kV transmission lines. Edison has 2 lines there, 220 kV lines. So if those go down, we're going to have a larger outage. And so when we're thinking about restoring, we're thinking about getting generation up, transmission up, and then distribution up. And those can take a lot of time to go through.
Any thought of, let's see, that just passed. Thanks.
I was saying, when I was in Northridge, one of the things that occurred was we were restoring gas to our customers after the quake stopped. As we started repairing the mains and services, then we would have to go out and purge lines of air and then restore each and every home. There were 150,000 people out of gas after the Northridge earthquake. So we started kind of in the center of the area and worked our way out. We had crews from SoCal Gas, from SDG&E, from PG&E, and Southwest Gas, all over the place, a lot of mutual aid that came in. And what happened was we kept having aftershocks. And I was working at one of our customer sites one day, and we had a customer come in after a 5.0 aftershock and said, hey, I want you to know that we had an aftershock. I was worried about my neighbors, so we shut off their gas, and because we want to make sure there wasn't a leak. Well, very few times when you have an earthquake does it really cause a leak inside the home. So what he did is he shut off the gas after they'd already been restored once, and so now they were put to the back of the list, and they were the last ones that were lit up after all that occurred. So I think if you do have an earthquake and you want to know whether or not you have a leak, one thing, see if you smell anything inside the home. If you do, please get out quickly, then call for emergency services. But you can go out to the meter and you'll see some dials on your meter. If you see our test dial that's spinning, that means gas is being used. You may have a leak at that point. Again, call emergency services. But just don't shut off the gas just because, as a precaution, unless you have a leak. Otherwise, you may be without gas for quite a while, and you can use that gas to keep the house warm and the water hot too.
I have a question. What can the city do to help you cope with these disasters? Or what can this committee do from your point of view? I know your company's doing a lot, police, fire doing a lot. What can the city do?
I think the best thing the city can do is help with communication with the public, because I think that's key for people being prepared and being ready. And if the committee can communicate to the citizens, and if they're ready, if they can be self-sustaining, I think that helps everybody.
Thank you.
Another quick question. There's a rumor that when you have a smart gas meter, if something happens and there's a problem, it'll shut the gas off automatically. Is that true?
I don't believe that's true at all. You may have there are earthquake valves that will shut off gas proactively in case of an issue, but not a smart meter. That's a good question.
Mr. Cave, thank you for your presentation, really informative. I had a kind of a 2-part question. Could you speak to some of the engineering controls that SDG&E might be working on in an effort to mitigate, such as undergrounding the electrical distribution or installing earthquake valves on gas meters?
Well, we don't proactively install earthquake valves. We leave that up to the customer. Because a lot of times, an earthquake valve, we want to make sure that it's something that you want and you want to install. Some cities have an ordinance. I believe the city of LA still has an ordinance that you have to install an earthquake valve on a natural gas meter. But most locations don't have that. And the reason is because you don't want the gas to go off if it's not necessary for it to go off. And so I worked up in Lake Arrowhead for a couple of years, and there's a lot of vacation rentals in that area. And people would ask me, what do you think about earthquake valves? And I just know personally, my opinion, I wouldn't have one at my home because I want control. But if I had a vacation home up at Lake Arrowhead, I'd have one on there because it takes me 2 hours to get up there to check on it. So I thought that was good. So SDG&E doesn't have a program, SoCalGas doesn't have a program to install proactively. As far as undergrounding lines, we're very fortunate here in South Orange County that 65, 68% of our lines are already undergrounded. And aesthetically, we love that. It's not the most reliable though, because if we have a fault or an issue with a line and it's underground, it takes longer to detect it. It takes longer to repair it. And if you have a fault within a conduit and it burns, it takes a lot longer to get electricity back on. But aesthetically, it's the right thing to do. And so as new lines are being installed now, they are being installed underground. But if you have an overhead line and it's being replaced, it gets replaced kind for kind. If it's above ground, it gets replaced above ground. And it's because mainly the cost. It's about 10 times higher to underground line than it is to install it overhead. And so the Public Utilities Commission, which regulates the investor-owned utilities, they say that you will replace it, if it's above ground, you replace it above ground. And so we have had a program, 28 program to underground lines. The PUC is going through some changes on that. We did a lot of undergrounding, SDG&E. We spent the money that we're supposed to spend. Some of the other utilities didn't quite spend what they should have. There's about $1.5 billion in funds that have not been utilized, but most of that, again, is in PG&E and Edison territory. I love to see them all underground, just as you would.
Can I make a suggestion? On one of your slides, you were very, very good on what you need in your home, but maybe you should add a second or a slash, what you should have in your car. Okay, I have a very thorough earthquake kit in my car and a pair of tennis shoes, and being a first responder, I do have some other stuff in there, heavy gloves and a pry bar just in case somebody needs some help. But and also to make sure that people think about keeping filling up your gas tank at a half tank, because you may not be able to get it.
Yeah.
And your comment on the automatic earthquake shut off, when I sold my house in LA, I had to pay $550 to put one of those on, or they wouldn't approve the sale. So.
And excellent suggestion. And I think one of the slides that said make sure that you have you never get below a quarter of a tank of gas, and a lot of people have a tank of gas. So excellent suggestion.
And that's one of the things in that earthquake in 2011, my wife was coming home and her car was like out of gas and all the San Clemente stations were shut down, but the Dana Point Argo was open and pumping gas. So that was a big deal when we could find gas. And also, I was remiss, although he was late, so I didn't acknowledge him, but Mike Greenwald, you just asked that question. Mike is a current LAPD reserve officer, and he has been added as an ad hoc member of our Neighborhood Watch subcommittee. He's going to be helping out with Neighborhood Watch. So I would have introduced him if he was here on time. So, I'm just.
Let's just say it one more time.
Good job. Thank you. Thank you, Dave, for taking some time out of your workday to help us out.
Happy to be here, and happy to be here in this brand new council chambers.
That's wonderful.
And you guys look good up there. Thank you.
Okay, one other housekeeping thing that I completely forgot about. I introduced our battalion chief that's going to be sitting on our committee, but I forgot to mention our new committee member who is just appointed to the committee, which is Scott Rober. And why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, Scott, so everybody knows.
Thanks, Rick. Thank you. Appreciate the introduction. I appreciate the trust that the council has put in me to allow me to serve on this committee. Look forward to working with this group of subject matter experts to research and develop solid recommendations for our council members, and working with our public safety partners, both the contract and internal, to make sure that they have all the tools, staffing, information, and equipment to serve our citizens as best they can. Thank you.
Okay, good to have you aboard. Okay, has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting?
And
Mr. Vacuda.
what if I move to approve the minutes from our last meeting?
I'd second that.
Okay, the motion by Mr. Vacuda, second by Mr. Hightower. All in favor, say aye.
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 Passes 4-0 with one, oh no, we don't have one absentee anymore. Sorry, 4-0 passes. Thank you. Okay, the next item on here is oral and written communications. And I don't know, Adam, if we had facilities that have cards or whatever, but I think we have some people in the audience that might want to speak. And so with that, I'll ask any members of the audience who okay, Ms. Adone.
Chair?
And Mrs.
Yeah, oh,
Sellers.
I'm sorry, wait, I have an objection, hang on.
No. For the oral communications, if people could just state their name for the record, spelling their last name would be beneficial as well. And I have a timer here that will time for 3 minutes based on the agenda. If you'd like me to use that, I can.
I think that would be wonderful, just wave when maybe there's 30 seconds left or something.
So the screen light will turn on at the beginning, and then when it turns yellow, they have 1 minute left.
Oh, and they can
And
see that.
there's a timer that indicates how much time is left.
Awesome. Okay, Mrs. Doan, is there a certain order you wanted to?
No, she can go first, and then we thought we had more than 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna be a little bit of the 3 minutes.
Okay.
Because
They think they're
special.
well, they are special, but
I'll
Mr.
go.
Acadian here, you just can't work around them, so.
Excellent. Well, I have some pictures. So may I, don't start me yet, because I need to go get these. Thank you, if you don't mind.
If you'd like me to
take on?
I'm gonna start with Captain Benfield, if I may, and then pass them around. You could take a peek, and then I'll tell you what you're looking at. How about that?
But you're down to 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
No! The reason that I printed photos is because I asked the chair when I would be able to submit. I work about 65 hours a week, and he said photographs would be suitable. So I will share with you who I am and why I'm here. My name is Lisa Edone, E-D-O-N-E. I chair the Human Affairs Committee, but I'm here speaking to you today as a concerned citizen. I'm concerned about public health and safety in the city of San Clemente. We have a very concerned group of citizens that, fortunately, live in our neighborhoods, drive up in Rancho San Clemente Business Park, are down at North Beach, are at Walmart, Target parking lot, in a number of areas, 24-hour fitness, and we've seen some things that are concerning. And I'd like some direction, because as someone who's just a citizen, I'm in the medical field. I don't know what to do when I see something, and I call OCFA, or I call OCSD and talk to the non-emergency number, or I contact code, Madam Atamian, and I'm looking for some guidance. So what I'd like to share with you is picture set number 1 was for the Rancho San Clemente Business Park. The vehicle there changed license plates. There's a Mercedes that has been spotted loading materials into that van and living in that van. Number 2 is on Calle Sombra in Rancho San Clemente Business Park. There are RVs living there. There's a tremendous amount of human waste. And the thing that's extremely concerning for fire risk, especially in this dry weather with all the dry brush surrounding, is gas cans, extension cords. There's an open flame barbecue that one of the RVs uses. And these are people with vanity plates and extremely expensive motorcycles. So it's not someone that's availing themselves of available services at FAM. These are people that are having a party in San Clemente. And I'm concerned about it, and a number of us are concerned about it. Past FAM on Negotio, there's a van with expired tags. It's been there for several months. Someone is living there. It hasn't been towed. There is a number 4 picture is a pile on Cordillera of an individual who has all kinds of stuff. Everything from a custom heirloom fishing rod to hula hoops. But he has gas cans, he has expired fire extinguishers, all kinds of things, generators. So I'd like to know, when I see something or one of the concerned citizens sees something, just out and about, who do we call and when? When do we call OCSD? When do we call OCFA? When do we contact code? I'm just looking for some answers on what we can do to try to help. I'm concerned that someone's gonna get hurt, they're gonna get stabbed, they're gonna get shot, someone's gonna be on a bad trip and attack. I'm concerned that there's gonna be a brush fire and the homes above the area are gonna catch fire and we're gonna have a disaster. So I'm just looking for some help.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Adele. And I see Ms. Sal's is up, who's also, I know, on the Human Affairs Committee. Is your comment going to be on a similar
Yeah,
topic?
it's kind of the same thing.
Oh, it is. I wasn't leading that. I'm sorry. So why don't you go ahead and make
Okay.
your comments?
Again, I'm Rosemary Salas and I'm on the Human Affairs. Just along those lines, a couple weeks ago, we saw a red van parked on Pico into the fire lane going into Marblehead Canyon. So many of us called non-emergency line, and we were told, oh, well, we were gonna give them till Monday to leave. Well, if there's a fire, how are you guys gonna get a truck down there? You know, and that goes right up to where we live. And we're also getting, a lot of our fire policies are getting canceled because of what's going on in the canyon. So it's affecting us financially because the policies are so much more for us to renew now. So it's just, we're just trying to get what rules, what is applying, you know, why are we not, so many expired tags around town? Why are we not ticketing these people? Why are they, you know, do we even know who they are? So many out-of-state tags, you know, so it's, those things are what's concerned us. And that's what we just kind of came here for public safety to kind of get some answers from you guys. What are the laws? What can you enforce? What can't you enforce? So we kind of know. So that's kind of where we're at right here.
Okay. Your time isn't up. Is your time up?
Yeah,
No?
I'm done.
Thank you. And traditionally, you know, I guess as the committee, we don't answer directly usually, but I think in this case, we have this crime town hall coming up on Wednesday, and maybe this would be an opportunity just to briefly address a couple of these issues from the two chiefs here. I mean, the one chief, as far as the you know, parking overnight or, you know, stuff on the sidewalk, and maybe Chief, you could weigh in on the flammable fluids that are out and, you know, stacked around, whatever. Like I say, we don't have to go into a long dissertation, but maybe just give the short answers on these, and maybe it would save us some time on Wednesday.
Yeah, Chief Tony Benko. Yeah, there's a lot going on there, and how would the average citizen know what group is responsible for enforcing what? The easy answer here is if you believe a crime has occurred, whether it's a municipal code or a violation of state law, to call the sheriff's department, and we'll either send someone out or we'll direct you to the appropriate resource. There are some things that clearly don't fall within our purview. If it's not a violation of law to have a gas can, even on the sidewalk, then we would refer you to fire or to code enforcement, things like extension cords, this sort of thing. If you're seeing expired tags, call those in, because we have parking enforcement people that will go and issue citations where appropriate. Just consider that just because a tag that appears to be expired doesn't mean that the registration is not current. The tab could have been stolen, the tab would be in the glove box, just hasn't been put on yet. And another consideration is cars can't be towed unless the vehicle's registration has expired more than 6 months. So when you see those things, just know that it's not necessarily something that's going to be able to go away. And the vehicle might be cited for it, that may have already happened. The person might be working on smog. There's a lot of reasons why tags are expired, right? So they're working to get those things fixed. It's not something we can easily remove the vehicle for. What else did we talk about? Yeah, the kind of the easy thing is call if you're concerned. We'll have someone either come out and address it and make sure that the appropriate agency looks into it, or will enforce if there's a violation of law or a municipal code that we would typically handle. The vehicle that you're referring to, the red one that was parked across the street on Pico, that was almost an anomaly. It's a really good spot. It's not blocking the roadway, not beyond the trespassing point. Very difficult to enforce. That subject told our sergeants and our deputies who responded out there that the vehicle was broken down. He was getting it fixed, waiting on a tow truck. My understanding was there for a couple days. And our last contact with him, I believe the mayor spoke to him as well, one of our sergeants, the mayor out there. But so I know he was being contacted by people. It's just one of those gray areas in the law where he's technically not a position we could tow his vehicle. He was stranded and was polite and professional with all of our people. And then the day that he said the last person contacted him was Sergeant Prescott, he told him I have a tow truck coming tonight, and the vehicle was gone that night. So just one of those unusual things. Wasn't in traffic, wasn't blocking the sidewalk, wasn't blocking the entrance to that roadway. So not really enforceable. Could have marked and warned it for 72 hours, but he was gone within that time frame anyhow. I'm sorry, I probably missed some of the other questions.
Well, I have one, and this is a citywide misconception or misunderstanding or lack of communication. There are ordinances in places about sleeping in your car overnight, whether it's a camper or not, but you see an influx of the motorhomes parked everywhere on public streets and staying overnight. What's the policy on those?
Yeah, so you're getting into, again, kind of a little bit of a gray area. So there are some areas in San Clemente where you can't park RVs more than 5 hours, right? That's a section where we could warn them for 5 hours, come back later and see if they had moved. Similar with all parking violations, a lot of these people know that, and so they'll simply move their car, and it doesn't have to be moved much. If it's moved, we're required to remark it and warn it again and just keep extending it. A lot of these people know that, and so they will just play that game and move around, which kind of touches on your point about private parking lots. We can't go around, we don't have the authority to go around and tell people to move from a private parking lot, but the businesses you mentioned, they would have to either request that we ask them to leave or sign a trespass, something to that effect. It's really on that establishment or that business to reach out to us. Because it's open to the public, even though it's privately owned lot, it's open to the public, so we have no authority to go in and tell anyone and to leave those spaces. And then the camping stuff is a whole nother ball of wax. You start to get into the homeless rights and the Martin versus Boise.
Are RVs considered part of that Martin versus Boise?
It's not really specifically mentioned. A lot of things are not specifically mentioned in Martin versus Boise, but it's an adaptation through court interpretation. And in California and many other states, it's pretty broad interpretation. If people are sleeping in their vehicles, the same argument applies, right? If they're claiming that that's their home, where would you have them go, right? So it's not the same as camping like on the street or in a park, but it's still their living quarters. So if they're in violation of an easement, they're in a no parking zone, right? Like maybe the North Beach parking lot after hours, something like that. Or if it's an RV and it's in an area where you can't park for more than 5 hours, those are things we can enforce. But again, our enforcement is limited. We can't tell them that they have to go, leave the city or anything to that effect.
Because I know on one of the areas, you've got people that, are driving up in really nice cars, getting out and going into their RV, clearly squatting for free on the city, Whereas, I'm just saying, what's to prevent me from pulling my RV out where I'm paying $300 a month and go park it on the street to save that amount of money?
Yeah, exactly. You'd have to move it every 5 hours, right? But if you're willing to do that, police wouldn't be able to intervene. I don't know, Adam, if there's a code that would apply for that, but
Is that 5 hour rule citywide?
I believe so on public streets.
Okay.
So it's every 5 hours on public streets?
And
We've
that's
got some on blocks.
I think a lot of people didn't know they thought it was 72 hours.
And leveled.
that's
Leveled and on
the
blocks.
regular vehicle parking rule. The state rule is 72 hours. If the vehicle hasn't moved, then it can be cited. And if that happens enough times, it could be towed.
But you're confirming if you see a vehicle that you think's been RV, because we're talking about RVs specifically, that you've seen there parked a while, call the police services, the non-emergency line, and you'll address it.
Of course, yeah. We have, on any given shift, there's one community services officer for the whole city, and they're primarily responding to accidents, to take accident reports, but they also do parking enforcement. So clearly, the community is going to see far more than they see, and we rely on those phone calls to help direct us to problem areas so that we can conduct enforcement.
I know last night Glenn Walker has a business there, and those RVs that are just on blocks up on the cul-de-sac, he called OCSD, waited, and they said they wouldn't even go over there and touch it because of Martin versus Boise.
That's not generally a response from us. We get calls that are directly related to Martin versus Boise every single day. In fact, they account for 20% of our calls for service, and we send deputies to every call.
Okay.
I'd have to check last night's calls and see to
Okay.
find out what happened.
Okay.
Without getting,
So I have a question about
but
that.
just real quick
Sorry.
though, just on,
You don't want to get in the weeds.
on that particularly, possibly just get roll call or something, maybe just remind
Yeah.
deputies what the policies.
And that's what we do. We get a lot of email concerns, and so we'll brief on those areas and make sure that the deputies on those particular shifts are checking those as well, in addition to the parking people who are out there.
So if something like that happens, because I've had circular conversations with dispatch, I mean, we were circling the drain and I said, okay, so I'm gonna hang up now because we're not getting anywhere. Because all I was looking for was some help in a very dangerous situation. Should we get the name, the date, timestamp it, and email you? I mean, you have so many important things to do. I feel terrible asking that, but as someone who's very concerned, and until we get a regional shelter built, point is, we're gonna have to deal with this. And if people are gonna get hurt, assaulted, brush is gonna go up in flames, there's feces and, waste being dumped, black tanks being dumped down waterways, it all goes to the beach. There are true public health and safety concerns. So I'm not an unsympathetic individual. If somebody's truly in need, I completely understand that. When you have a custom RV with vanity plates and a $15,000 motorcycle with $6,000 worth of helmets, buy your motorcycle, and you set up your fire, your open flame barbecue right next to brush, that's concerning. And then the other thing is that white short bus, the shorter bus that changed the plates from Colorado plates to California plates. We've observed, we have it on video, a very nice $120,000 Mercedes pulling up to it, offloading something and loading something else, and they're living in there, but something shady's going on. And they changed plates when they saw us there, because there was a whole caravan of us that went up Sunday, and we were filming them, and we know darn well they were filming us. But I mean, Captain Benfield, we have women going up with their kids and their SUVs driving around trying to take pictures. I'm like, no, you're not Columbo. That's not safe, right? But we really have people that care a lot.
Yeah.
So we don't want to get in your way, and we don't want you to do things that are a waste of your time, but we do want to protect the community that we've all worked really hard to live here. And nobody wants to see a brush fire like Laguna Niguel. I have friends that lost their home, absolutely devastating, and none of us wants our homeowner's insurance canceled.
Yeah, so if we rewind a little bit, just to back up there, if you're having an issue with dispatch, just for general knowledge, there's a dispatch supervisor on duty every shift. So if you feel like you have a public safety concern that isn't being addressed, believe it or not, dispatch gets all kinds of calls for all kinds of reasons, and many of them are not related to law enforcement, and that's okay, that's part of the job, right? We welcome them. And so maybe they're not understanding your point, maybe the dispatch supervisor would be a better route to go or to request to speak to. Because they may be able to steer you in the right direction or send out the appropriate resource to address the problem. But absolutely, if we aren't getting calls on it, where we won't know about it, so we do appreciate the community's input.
And do you mind addressing the fire concern? Because we truly don't know what to do, and we don't know what role code plays, Mr. Atamian. So it's all a bowl of oatmeal to us. We're just trying to do our best.
Actually,
People
Paul, this
that
is a
care.
fairly new phenomenon. I mean, the RVs with gas tanks and generators and stuff hanging on them, so maybe you could just enlighten us on what the fire department's role might be.
Yeah, as Shane Mullen, Division Chief, Orange County Fire Authority. Yeah, if you see open flame, obviously that's nothing that we want out there. You can always call dispatch and and let them know, and we will send a fire engine out there to evaluate it and make sure. A lot of times when we show up on those, the people maybe don't realize they're not allowed to have an open flame, and sometimes the fire engine pulling up kind of scares it out of them a little bit. We point out the brush and then the big red fire engine pulling up. So that's always the best case scenario. We also have fire investigators that are on 24 hours a day, and if we're there and it just doesn't feel quite right to the crew that pulls up on the fire engine, obviously they'll get people to put their fire out and all those things. We can bring the investigators in, and if it's something malicious, we'll work with the sheriffs and work through that process with them. But typically, feel free to call the fire department. That's definitely what we're here for. We do not want that brush catching on
So
fire.
in the instance of the really nice custom RV with the motorcycles and the helmets, because I was looking at it up going, whoa, they have a generator, extension cords, a can of paint thinner next to the generator, an extension cord running to another RV, and I spoke to a lovely dispatcher yesterday at OCFA, and she said, we've got an inspector out there. They were still out there as of 3:30 this morning, running their generator with the extension cords right next to a bunch of dry brush.
Mm.
So I'm not sure what to do in that kind of circumstance. I mean, and I hate to pull an engine away to go look at people with extension cords and paint thinner and gas. But it's one spark away.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is what we're here for. So if there's open flame, especially, that's when we'll send an engine. If we need to get inspectors out there, work with code enforcement on the other piece of it. As far as what they can have, extension cords, things like that, I'm not sure what that is. But we'll come out and evaluate the safety of the situation and bring it up to our partners if it's something that we can't handle as a fire department. But definitely don't hesitate to call us if there's a fire concern, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question for you. I mean, in your group of people, have you ever gone out there and talked to these folks and asked them what they're doing? I mean, after all, they are human beings, and probably, they have a good excuse for what they're doing. So you're looking for the police and fire department to take care of something that perhaps somebody in your group should go out there and try and find out before you call 40.
We did. We had several conversations on Sunday.
And what do you find out when you do that?
Well, one person said that he was a tour operator and that he came to San Clemente to pick up a dog. And then he went to FAM, and he needs to be near FAM to get his services. And the dog is still in his SUV, and he's living right up the street from FAM.
And
So-
but he doesn't want to be put into a place. He wants to live on the streets. He
We said, if we can help you get housing, would you want housing? Would you want shelter? And he said, no, I just want to stay here. There was another fellow who was clearly under the influence, had belongings all over the place. I spoke to the chair and he said, if there's no evidence that anything there is stolen, there's little that OCSD can do. He spent 4 hours overnight cleaning up his things to make it more organized. But he said to us, well, I've never been on a drug and I've never used a substance in my life. And I was looking at him thinking, dude, you are high as a kite. Now that's someone I would love to help get into recovery. But he said he'd never had a drink or never touched a drug in his whole life. I weigh 106 pounds. Am I going to call this man a liar? I don't think so. But I want to know why he has a $10,000 road bike and hula hoops and 2 expired fire extinguishers and a bowl of gasoline.
It's the
I'll
hula
see
hoops
there.
we're really concerned about. The hula hoops, that's.
Well, I was trying to understand, but he said, no, I don't touch drugs. I'm a tour operator and I came to get a dog. And we said, well, where's the dog? Well, the dog's in my car. So it was very interesting.
So basically, we have a societal problem going on here, really, and to ask the police and the fire to be the solution, I think it might be a little bit difficult. What you're doing is probably the best thing, is to find out what's going on anyway, before you report them to the authorities. These people need help, sounded like to me.
Well, the person in the custom RV with the vanity plates and the expensive motorcycle didn't need help. They just were having fun. And there was a bunch of beer bottles outside their RV, and they said, we're here to party. So I'm very compassionate. I've experienced homelessness in my family and addiction and recovery, and I am very compassionate. If somebody's living on the streets in San Clemente, yucking it up, having beer parties, having open flame barbecue, cooking steaks, you have a hard time selling me that that's someone who's truly in need. And I think FAM does wonderful work for people in need, and you're right, it is a societal problem.
Yeah.
In the meantime, if people are using unsafe equipment or things that can be ignited, or it's a dangerous situation because someone's under the influence and you see them with a knife, that's concerning, that's a public safety issue. If you see feces and urine on the street and debris on the street, that's a public health issue. So, I understand it's multifaceted, nobody here is going to solve it, but my concern is just, as a citizen driving around, seeing things happen, what do we do?
Well, I think we've kind of verified the process. Chief Benfield and Chief Ball have committed to the fact that if you have an issue, you call. And I think when you see what you've seen, I think it is a police or a fire issue. I don't expect you to go out there and interview these people. But if it's a public safety issue, like you've mentioned, they will respond. We've committed to that. And I think that's what we do, and we keep on calling them like we do. And that's, I don't know what else to say. Anybody else?
Chair, if I could speak a little bit on code compliance's side of this matter. So code compliance classically handles property maintenance, private property maintenance. So if you're observing people living on commercial properties specifically, you can contact code compliance as well. Based on the general tenor of the issues that you're raising, I would say that if there is an active fire or there is something like defecation or dumping in storm drains, something that's more immediate, you might want to start with police services. While code compliance does address water quality issues, we would typically get that complaint forwarded to us from OCSD, but they're emergency responders. Code compliance will address the issues, but based on our typical resources, they may take a couple days. And our response is to property managers. We don't arrest individuals. We don't tend to deal specifically with individuals, but the target, for instance, does not have an approval to store RVs on their property. So if we can observe that that's occurring, we'll get in touch with property managers. In the past, what we've been doing is, as issues arise and certain properties become problematic, we will provide information about how to post a property to indicate times of the day when trespassing is not permitted, provide an authorization form that would allow property managers or a representative of the property owner to permit OCSD to take action against trespassers. That's typically what we see on private property. On public property, vehicle-related issues are classically handled by OCSD. In this particular area, though, when we're talking about people who may be in need of resources, our community outreach workers are actively engaged in this. As we get complaints, which we do rely on from the public, they will go out and address these types of vehicles, whether they're on private property or on public property. And in the case of the little white SUV, I can tell you the community outreach workers have spent probably 12 to 14 hours over the last week dealing with that particular individual in multiple locations around the city. So we are aware of where these issues are, but for immediate threats, to health and safety. It would start with either OCFA or OCSD, but you can always call it into code compliance. We're just not staffed 24 hours, so there might be a delay in getting that. The issues that shouldn't be referred to OCSD actually provided to them.
Thank you, that's really helpful, because in the retail parking lots, there were a number of us that took it as our mission to call store management and then get to district management, and they said, well, you have to call and complain as citizens, and we said, no. Property management has to involve code, and you have to trespass. I mean, I learned more than I ever thought I'd ever learn about this stuff. I was like, no. You have to give them written notice, and then you have to trespass them. And they can't come have a party. And again, this was a big brouhaha where people were boogieing down and, oh, we want to go to the beach, and they were having a great old time. And, 6 SUVs, and then it became 8, and then it became 10, or not SUVs, RVs. It became 10, and they just had a good old party with the red Solo cups and burgers, and were yucking it up. Loud music. They weren't people in need. That's a different thing entirely. And I have Carly's number on speed dial. I have FAMS information. I have flyers in my car with FAMS information, so that when I see beggars and they say, hungry, need food, I'll go up to them and say, here's somebody who can help you. They can get you housing. They can get you food. Do you want to use my phone? We'll call them right now. We do it all the time. But it's people that are mocking San Clemente and saying, we're going to come here and yuck it up and you can't touch us. That's not okay, particularly if they're doing things that are unsafe.
One important thing, if you can get them to drive down onto the beach, I'm sorry, not me.
Press the button.
If you can get them to drive down onto the beach, Chief Merlot will have them out of there in no time. I have much confidence, so maybe that's the strategy we should use.
So we'll do a caravan, s'mores at the beach.
Also, just so you guys are aware, there is a website that people list what areas in town are easy to camp at, where they're left alone. It's kind of like a homeless. They all, they jump on there. And our big thing is you don't want us to become a Venice. You know what I mean? And if you look on that website, it talks about Med Hero parking lot, really easy. I slept there 3 nights. No one bothered me. So that, we want to cut that out. That's a big thing for us, so.
Again, I think everybody, they've committed to addressing the issue.
Okay,
But
thank you.
Thank you, we're glad we came.
Thank you.
Or I'm speaking for Rosemary, but I'll just go ahead and do that. We're glad we came and addressed you. Thank you for the respect and the courtesy. And clearly, we're not unsympathetic to people truly in need. We're concerned personally, just as a citizen, about public health and safety. And that's it. So thank you for telling us who to go to when. And we'll do that, because you can probably tell we're not shy.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you very much, yeah.
Okay, anybody else in the audience wish to address any issues? Seeing none, on to reviews and recommendations, which I see there are none. In new business, evaluate an ordinance concerning street side soliciting, which I believe came from the city council.
Thank you, Chair Leffler. I'm passing out some information, and I'm going to make a couple copies available to the public. Give me a couple seconds. No, there shouldn't be any extra. There's 4 sets.
There's more than one set.
I had them stacked, so you just took one of the 4
Well.
sets.
There you go.
That's a set for you.
Yeah, that worked out well.
Somebody's gonna screw it up.
Some will.
I got one of each.
I've got 215.
I don't have the city, I have the Lake Forest.
Okay, I've got the 250. Now I need this for ordinance.
This is like baseball cards.
Wait a minute, Aliso Viejo, Lake Forest.
Yeah, there's one for Aliso and one for Lake Forest.
Okay.
One just says ordinance, the other says ordinance number
So there's
215.
only 2 packets then?
Yeah, there's only 2 stapled items.
Got it, okay. I just want to say that Scott was the only one that did it right. He was the first one. He had the biggest chance to mess it up, and he actually did it right, so.
All right. No, you're good. You can just put it back.
Okay. Good afternoon. Adam Matamian. I am presenting an item that was requested to be placed on the agenda. I believe it was the September 20th City Council meeting. They requested the Public Safety Committee to review potential ordinance to prohibit or regulate street side soliciting. Before you are two examples of such ordinances. One is from the city of Aliso Viejo, the other is from the city of Lake Forest. I will go through those in just a second. But I do want to provide a general overview of this topic. The city does not have the ability to prohibit solicitation for money in a blanket fashion. There are First Amendment considerations, but what we can do is provide regulations that cover issues related to public health and safety. In addition to that, I should also mention, we're limited to where we can provide regulation for this. From time to time, we have seen people soliciting on the side of the freeway off-ramps. Anything that is part of Caltrans right-of-way needs to be enforced by Caltrans, which uses the CHP for their enforcement arm. Our regulations would not address freeway on-ramps or off-ramps. So the ordinances before you are rather straightforward. I'll start with the Lake Forest ordinance. What they've decided to do is create a definition for something called a no stopping zone. For them, it means a segment of city street, highway, driveway, parkway, sidewalk, or public right-of-way where stopping or parking of vehicles is prohibited. So this would be main thoroughfares of streets or areas where there's red curbing along the side of the street. Based on identification of that area, their prohibitions are very straightforward, as identified in their section 11.68.030, which states that 1, no person shall engage in solicitation that requires a motor vehicle to stop in a no stopping zone. And then the second one is related to essentially carving out that this ordinance does not make a permit that is required for vending, street vending, applicable to individuals. Moving on to the Aliso Viejo section, they have it set up a little bit differently, but it's still relatively the same result. And under 4.16.010, solicitation prohibited, item A is a pretty good example of what these regulations do. And it just states that it is unlawful for any person to be upon or go upon the roadway of any public street and solicit or attempt to solicit employment, business, or charitable contributions or alms from the occupant of any vehicle which is in transit upon a public street, regardless of whether such vehicle is moving or temporarily stopped in traffic. So both of these ordinances would be defensible as far as the city's legal counsel is concerned, noting that the point of them is to protect the safety of vehicle travel, while not restricting somebody's rights to First Amendment speech to request donations. So at this point in time, I can answer any additional questions on this, but ultimately this City Council has requested Public Safety Committee review of this item with a recommendation on whether to move forward with this. If the committee would like to make that recommendation, the next step would be for an item to go to the City Council to initiate the adoption process for a new ordinance.
Just for clarification, I asked you a question. I'm looking at the wording on the Aliso Viejo. So the Walmart shopping mall, and there's a couple of driveways that come out of that on the Pico. So if somebody is standing in the roadway with their signs, that would be illegal under this one, standing in the roadway soliciting?
Under this ordinance, under Aliso Viejo, it does not identify, private streets. It identifies it as an area within any public street right of way that involves a number of particular aspects. However, what I can say is that the city does have an aggressive panhandling ordinance in place. This was adopted a few years ago. And in that ordinance, we identified a public place to include private areas of private property that are open to the public. So I believe that inclusion of that type of language in whatever definition of street that's proposed can be included.
And it's, well, they're regulated by city traffic signals. You know,
Yeah,
also.
yeah.
And a quick question for Captain Benfield, because I've kind of forgotten the penal code. And there used to be, I think, a regulation, if you were panhandling with a child, that was construed as child endangerment. Is that still something? You know?
So I'm not exactly familiar, but I think it would depend on what the conduct was,
Certainly,
right?
yes.
Standing with your child somewhere with a sign is probably not gonna do it, but if you're in a roadway, maybe you could start to lean towards that.
Okay.
I would also just throw out that, and I could be mistaken, but I thought I remember years ago, the courts coming down and having a problem with panhandling in general because they decided it was overly broad because it's your right to ask somebody for money and their right whether or not to give it to you. So I would assume that BD&K has looked at these. I know they do legal services for Lake Forest. I'm not sure about Aliso, but that would be a concern, right?
I think the panhandling, it was standing outside 7-Eleven or whatever, and panhandling, there's nothing you can do about that.
Right.
But when you're in a roadway or causing a hazard that way, either to the beggar or the begee, I think cities have been able to.
Yeah, because they're in the roadway or on a center median, something.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Okay.
Well, Adam, this looks like a non-problem to me. I have never seen anybody in San Clemente on a public road come up to my car and ask me for money or wash my windshield, you know, like we were out down in Mexico or Tijuana. Is this really a problem here in San Clemente? I mean, what was the motivation for this?
Well, I can tell you it's before you right now because the city council requested it. But I can tell you from my experience, I have seen people panhandling in the city. It's not an everyday occurrence, and I certainly haven't seen every example of it in the past couple of years. But yeah, there's multiple times where I've seen somebody.
Is this applicable to the people on the freeway off ramps or where you have a median and there's a stop sign and those people?
Yeah.
You see a lot of that.
Yeah. So we've seen this. I will say, I typically, in my experience, have seen this either at the off ramp of the 5 at Pico,
Yeah.
or at the around the entrances to Plaza Pacifica of Pico. This type of ordinance could most likely be tailored to address the issues at Plaza Pacifica with people at the intersection entrances. However, no ordinance of this nature would affect our ability to enforce on Caltrans right of way, meaning off ramps, on ramps, those types of areas.
I have a question regarding just that, the Caltrans things. Does the Caltrans state law, I guess, would be the Caltrans folks, do they have a similar ordinance that we don't know about, or what do you think?
I'm not aware.
So if you call CHP for the guy that's selling oranges on the off-ramp, do you think he has a vehicle to take care of it or not. I don't know.
Well,
I think they do.
So the CHP, so, you know, in kind of a broad brush perspective, nothing but driving down the freeway is permitted on Caltrans property. There's some exemptions for, you know, vehicles that are broken down and, you know, things of that nature, but whether it's an encampment along the side of the freeway or it's somebody putting up signs, or it's somebody soliciting for donations, none of those activities are really permitted. There's exceptions to that, though, where the area of Caltrans right-of-way serves multiple purposes. So there are sidewalks that are in Caltrans right-of-way. If you're on a sidewalk and you're not providing an opportunity for a negative impact to public safety, stopping the flow of traffic, something of that nature, I don't know that anything that Caltrans would have on its books or CHP would affect that.
Well, just the sheer fact that all these cities are addressing this issue with ordinances means it must be somewhat of a problem. And if you go up to Pico Plaza up there, it's an everyday occurrence. There's somebody up there every day. So if this ordinance would, wait 1 second, Mike, wait till I finish and then you can jump in. Anyway, if it would give us a tool to use when somebody is out in that roadway and cars are trying to go through, and I think there's nothing wrong with it. If people aren't violating it, then there's no enforcement to do. So if it really isn't a problem, it isn't happening, it's not going to be an issue. So I'm leaning towards, I like the wording a little bit better on the Aliso Viejo one, I think, but I mean, I might be wrong. Yes, Mike, what would you like to say?
I think, to me, the biggest concern is these people are taking their children out to sit on a curb and a sidewalk for 8 to 10 hours while they're begging. And, you know, I don't see them sheltering them, and the kids are just sitting there doing nothing for 8 hours. I think it's more of a thing of endangering the children, and maybe you might think about that in any.
Well, already, and I'll tell you that I think Captain Benfield can, I'm sorry, Chief Benfield, I'm sorry. Could attest to that they do get welfare check requests. People do see beggars out there with kids, young kids, sometimes in cribs. And I know people have called and asked for a welfare check when they've seen that. And deputies go out, if it's an issue, it's an issue. If it's not, it's not. So it actually, there is already that on the books. That's why I asked about the child endangerment. I guess it's not an automatic when you're begging, but there is the facility on any call, any situation to go out and check on the welfare of the child. And that would be one of the considerations, I'm sure, out in the hot sun, no water, no whatever. I think that's probably would be addressed. Any other comments on the ordinances themselves?
I guess I don't see how you could possibly enforce this, and I guess the comment about the public, no stopping zones, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I agree that the Aliso municipal code's a little bit wordy, but I don't know, I guess I'm not really too happy with this particular ordinance. I think the welfare check is a better way to go for something like this.
I'd be interested to get Captain Benfield's input here. Aliso and Lake Forest are both contract cities with OCSD. Neither of these ordinances are new. One's from 2009, one's from 2015. I'd be interested to, you may not know right off the top of your head, but maybe contact your colleagues in those areas and see the efficacy of these ordinances, and then possibly any unintended consequences, right, where it drives people to other places or it creates these other hazards that we didn't see when we moved forward with one of these ordinances.
Yeah, I'm happy to reach out to those captains and get their perspective on it. And again, moving them to other places, that is almost surely the point of an ordinance like this. Unfortunately, right, people have the right to go where they want, basically do what they want unless you pass one of these. And so to Charlie's point about enforcement, typically, like most things, it's gonna be education first, which delivers the message, and generally they will leave once they figure out that they're being watched, right? For people who are routine or repeat offenders, right, if I warned you on this corner and tomorrow I see you on that corner, you're probably getting a citation for it, and that will generally clear up the problem. Much like the homeless issue though, there will be other people that, it's a revolving door, right? So advocacy, it depends on what your metric is, right? Are you looking long-term or short-term? Short-term, it will have an effect, but many of these people are, professionals, that this is what they do. And transient kind of in nature, although not transient in the same sense as homeless. Many of these people actually have homes and have a car nearby, and sometimes a really nice car. And this is just what they do for money, right? So in the short term, local perspective, you may see some benefit. You may see people who you're used to seeing around town go elsewhere. But I can follow up with you guys, with the other chiefs and their perspective on it.
Thank you. For sure, and the, by advocacy and the unintended consequence, also how it affects the sheriff's department and the deputies and their ability to deliver service. The last thing I would want to do is make a recommendation to council to adopt something that is unenforceable or puts an unnecessary burden on our public safety partners also.
Are you saying, is this ordinance, is it unenforceable, Chief? Is that what you were saying?
No, it's that it's not unenforceable. I think it is enforceable. Probably would be education first, right? First round, fair warning to everybody, citations to follow that up. I think most people are going to leave after the warning.
My experience tells me that's true.
I have a comment. This is on the Lisa Viejo on page 3, B3. It indicates a window there of time. Is that necessary, or is that, I'm not sure, because I don't have them in front of us to say why they just pick that window period between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. rather than just leaving it open. That's a comment that I'd pass on to the city attorney or the city council if they were going to consider this.
So they're saying it's legal between 10 and 3, is that how, that's how I would read it?
That is it.
Seems
So,
so confusing to me.
On that page, item B states, any qualified charitable or nonprofit corporation, organization, or association shall obtain a certificate of exemption from the city. Such certificate shall be issued within a certain time frame. Provided such application and the proposed solicitation conforms to the following requirements, and then below that is item 3.
Got it. Okay.
And so that would not.
I think that's for 501c3s and whatever. If they're out there soliciting, they probably have some local stricter guidance. I haven't seen any of those.
No. I mean, the guy with the sign that has this nice car around the corner, he's not paying taxes.
We're creating a bureaucracy now. Now, to do this, you have to go to the city and get a permit to do it.
Only if you're a charitable organization.
Exactly, and now it's starting, just grow and grow.
And so
all
the
states
gypsies
can
are
do-
going to go get 501c3s, and is it from your experience? Tell me that.
I just.
So just to clarify, all cities have some type of restrictions on solicitation
Right.
for commercial purposes. The city has a commercial solicitor's license that's required. We're talking about the activities that are outside of necessary permitting. So nobody who's panhandling it would be an infringement of somebody's First Amendment rights to require a permit for them to hold a sign asking for money. So there's been a couple questions. With the committee has a couple choices at this point. You can take a vote on this item now to return this to council sooner rather than later, or if you would like to give staff some time to respond to the questions. We can keep this item on the agenda and discuss it at the next meeting.
Well, if specific questions, does somebody have specific questions on the ordinances?
I'm referring mostly to Committee Member Rover's comments about enforceability. And it seems like the information requested from Captain Benfield is going to be important to the execution of such an ordinance. I will say, as far as the reason Aliso and Lake Forest were chosen, those are both cities that are served by Best West and Krieger, our city attorney's office. Both of them also have contracts with OCSD. But if you'd like those questions answered, which I don't know the answer to them, we can just keep this on the agenda for next month and revisit it at that time. That's an option.
No, I was going to ask what's the problem we're trying to solve, but I think we know what the problem is we're trying to solve. And either one of these will take care of it. So I don't see any reason to delay this thing because it's a straightforward type thing.
No, and I mean, expanding on this, if you're listening to the ladies that were talking and they're talking about the car or the RV up there that changed plates and whatever, and the nice cars that my experience is probably what they are. They're gypsies. You know, they make a pretty good living doing this. And I like Chief Benfield's comment that might be a short-term fix, and if they moved on to someplace else because we have this ordinance, I think that would be wonderful. To tell you the truth, I would just be giddy. So I share the Mr. Pecuta's. I think it's straightforward. I think Chief Benfield said it is enforceable. I'm pretty sure it is enforceable because I think we're about the only city in Orange County that doesn't have an ordinance like this for whatever reason. So I'm ready to move on it.
Well, why don't we have an ordinance against gypsies then?
I think they're a protected. I think they're a protected class.
Well, then this would apply to them, would it?
Oh Lord, I don't know how to respond to that. No, you
I think we can respond by going to the city's attorney office and ask them what Adam is saying. You know, what
I'm sorry.
is
What
it
is it?
enforceable? What's the implication on professionals that are doing this, like gypsies or whatever? And what's the impact on the First Amendment? That's a pretty important thing to consider.
So you think
The city attorney's office supports both of these ordinances.
I couldn't hear you, Adam.
The city attorney's office supports both of these ordinances as being enforceable.
Okay.
and not violating the First Amendment?
And not violating the First Amendment. The point of them is to protect vehicle safety and not to limit somebody's ability to express their First Amendment rights. I will say there are always implications with some of these new ordinances. Staff, which this type of ordinance would be something that the Orange County Sheriff's Department would enforce. It would require them to send it. Let's say we go down the Lake Forest example where we identify no stopping areas. It would require that staff, deputies specifically, be trained up in identifying what are the no stopping areas. We don't see this in that many places where I think that would be a difficult thing to overcome. But I'll let Captain Benfield speak to general enforceability.
So the benefit of this ordinance is what, Rick? What's the benefit to the city?
If somebody's standing in the street, stopping cars, and the danger to himself or endangering vehicles, and we have a tool to stop them and at least educate them that you're breaking the law. And we don't have that now. They can stand out in the middle of the street, they can go and they flag down cars, they can do it with a baby in their hand, and OCSD can just watch it go by. And with this tool, they would, if they saw something like this, they would be able to at least address the issue. And I'm sure it's not going to be dragging people down in handcuffs. I think every time you have a new ordinance, it's education that you use to get the word out, and I think it would solve a little bit of the problem. It doesn't have to be used. All these things are discretionary, remember. These ordinances are discretionary, is how the police approach them and handle them. And I've been very satisfied seeing how OCSD in this city addresses new ordinances. So
That sounds like a good argument to me, Rick, so, yeah.
Do we need a motion or just a recommendation?
First we gotta figure out which ordinance we're gonna possibly send back to, or we send them both back and say,
Yeah, we considered both of them, they sound okay to us, you know.
So if the committee would like to move forward on making a recommendation, one way or another, if you would like to weigh in on one of the two examples, please do. Otherwise, I'll work with Captain Benfield to identify which ordinance city staff would be most supportive of moving forward.
Is that a motion?
well, if we said both of these look good to us, if that was moving forward, would you have an issue with looking at them and kind of weighing in after we do that and saying, well, this one, I like this one better than that one, or whatever from the.
I think that's great. And since we just got these today, I haven't really been able to even look at either one closely. So I think a little bit of time to examine will maybe come up. And if I know BB&K might want to adjust things again, so it's good.
So you would help in the tweaking?
Sure.
If we just pass these forward, is that acceptable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I speak to what Captain Benfield just said? This is an issue in the city, for sure. But it's not a new or a time-sensitive issue. And again, in the interest of moving forward with solid recommendations to council that have a good 360 view, I'd really rather see Captain Benfield speak to his colleagues in Aliso, in Lake Forest, about the effect that their ordinance have on both the issue and their deputies for enforceability and time commitment, and get back to us with maybe one of these ordinances is really good and one isn't. Or maybe they're both great. Or maybe neither of them are great and we could go down a different route, right? I'm just off the top of my head, it came to my mind, you guys both know that in our jobs we're required to wear a safety vest to work on or around streets. So maybe there's a law that's already on the books that we could address this issue with. Maybe not. Maybe we do need an ordinance, but again, if we could move forward with a recommendation that brings in a good 360 view and don't put the pressure of time on ourselves when there isn't a pressure of time.
So if we put this over to the next meeting, so are we saying that Chief Benfield's gonna look at these and come back to us with a recommendation on one that we should pass or not pass? And you feel comfortable doing that?
I have no problem with talking to the other chiefs. In fact, I've texted them both. One has already responded, although he's a new chief to the city, so he can't speak specific to Aliso. But we all had ordinances similar to this one. We worked patrol. Lake Forest had one. It's not the one before. It used to be specific to center medians. Back in those days, it was people selling flowers and fruit, and it was a problem, right? Because they're stopping traffic. Same issue. They were easy to enforce then. I would imagine if we passed one, it would be very easy to enforce. It would look like this. A civilian would generally call, and a deputy would go out, and if the person was there, they would contact them and say, what you're doing is illegal. There's a meeting code. You can't be here without a permit. And they would leave. If they didn't leave, they would get cited. If they were seen again anywhere in the city and they'd already been previously warned, they would be cited and would be asked to leave at that point. Or else they would risk possibly getting arrested.
In Los Angeles, 48 years ago, we had similar, there was begging. We had kind of the same thing, and it started with the orange sellers, and we had ordinances to do the same thing. And basically what they were is, it wasn't the begging part or asking for money or even selling the oranges. It was the fact that are they in the roadway or causing a safety issue to themselves or the vehicles or passengers that they were engaged with. And that's all I can, I don't know what else to say.
Well, let's postpone this till the next meeting and we get the input from Chief Benfield. How's that?
That's fine. And it's all on you, and you better come back with all packaged and ready to go.
Yeah, happy to do so, and I'll do you one better. I'll reach out to some of the other captains for Section 18 cities of Orange County Sheriff's Department cities and see what they have and how that is working for them. So the Southwest Division is one of the benefits. We have 7 cities that are provided services by the Sheriff's Department. So I could quickly take a poll of them, find out what works and what doesn't. We could present you guys with a number of options.
Do we need a motion for this over on the agenda?
No, the only motion that would be necessary is if you want to make a recommendation to council.
Okay, so let's put it on the November agenda then.
It will remain on.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, so what do we got next? Unfinished business. Okay, we got the communication and disaster preparedness update. Mr. Peter.
Chair.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Before we get too far into this, I just want to remind the committee, there's a couple items that have been discussed previously, but this is the first meeting after the work plan was approved by the city council. So the work plan that we have, and there were no changes to it from the public safety committee's approval, but the items that have been outstanding over the last couple of months was related to the assignments of the working groups for each of these. There have been, with both the new members and the resignation of other members, and I believe that there was some standing committee members that wanted to shuffle some of the projects they were working on.
Would now be a good time to just...
Now would be the final time for setting, if you want to go through all the updates, and then just at some point it'd be nice to.
Well, let's just do it now before we go through the updates. We just go down the list. Right now we have disaster communications and preparedness. We have Nick and Charlie. I know Nick's staying on it for sure, because you're going to be the designated guy who's going to work with the city. So, Charlie, are you want to stay on this one, or you have some?
Well, I think the communications aspect of it probably could use somebody, with my experience. Yeah, I'm on my experience, so I've talked to Nick about that, yes.
So you're saying somebody might have more experience than you, or you do have experience? Okay, so we're leaving that one. Okay, thank goodness. Okay, I was worried there for a second. Okay. We got the homelessness, we've got me, and I'm gonna cross off Bill. And we have Mike on that with me as a subcommittee member, and we could use another person. Of course, we might get another member too. Now, if you have any real special love for working on the homeless issue, that's fine. Otherwise, we do have 2 people working on it. You feeling, Scott? I'm not putting you on the spot, really not.
I agree that you and Mike will do it.
Okay, very good.
Job on that.
Perfect, okay. Legislation review, it's just me. Yeah, well, and I'm no expert on it, as you can plainly see from our past meetings. Do you have any special legislative,
I don't, but I'm happy to help.
Okay, well, I'm gonna put you down here, that's
All right.
perfect. It's not that difficult gleaning the information, but it'd be good to have somebody else, another eye on it. Statistical information review, and we've got Charlie and Nick, and that was basically...
Chair, if I could just clarify.
You're gonna have to speak up if you want to say something.
Sorry. For the legislative item, is that just committee member Rover then, or?
No, it's me. I'm staying on it.
Both of you, okay.
Both of us. And now we have the statistical information and review, which has been Nick, and you were kind of doing the stats and review on the police department side of it. Is that kind of okay? Then we got Charlie, who's been doing the fire department side of it. And doing a good job. I'm trying to figure out where Scott's expertise might jump in, on that part of it.
I think Scott ought to take it over.
Okay, all right.
These are you might hand you these are what we've been getting from the Orange County Fire Department, and they're really good.
Great.
There is a page with a lot of statistics on it, and I've been tracking that.
Oh, great.
I hope you continue to provide those. We still need the third quarter report. We've only got the first and second quarters, but yeah.
Perfect.
And then the police side of it, they've changed ways that they do their stats, or now it's a national, and it's reported at a different time frame also, so somehow we're gonna have to catch up with that, how that's put together. And I made a mistake, I said the homelessness Mike was working on, actually it was Neighborhood Watch he's working with me on. So the homelessness out has a, well, let's leave the homelessness and see what happens when they start looking for people.
Let me just comment to our new fire department representative. That we probably, this board is probably the only one that really looks at those things. And I do a detailed examination of when I get them. And if anything would come up, I would be the one, or Scott would be the one to go to the city council. But more than that, what we're looking for is ways that we can help Orange County Fire Department do a better job to help the citizens here in San Clemente. You go through here, the number of medical emergencies that you guys deal with here is, it tops the list. And then there's miscellaneous things, you do inspections, automobile collisions. It's just, you guys are doing a tremendous job, and we're here really to help you. We're not here to give you a grade or anything like that. So, appreciate all the work you do.
Yeah, I appreciate that feedback. We were just looking
Let
at that.
me add on to that. If you, one of the other work plans is technology review. So we're looking for new technology that would help. Because early on, our committee sponsored and encouraged city council and trying to get the license plate reader program installed or even really close. But that's the type of thing that it could help everybody, a big toolbox.
Or do fire trucks, electric vehicles, that's the way of the future, things like that. Now, think out of the box, I guess, is what Scott and I've been trying to do on the job for the fire department to do. And here you are, sounds like it should be really experienced and an expert in that, so appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
And going on technology and review, so it's Nick and Charlie again, and you guys are good. It sounds like you were just talking about that, so you're happy with that. And don't forget Rod on that technology and stuff. I mean, he's got to have something new he needs, motorized paddle boards or something that we can try to get all the fun stuff. Okay, technology review. Okay, human trafficking. You and I are on it. I don't know how much work is going to it's coming to an end. It's something we always.
Well, actually, I was not. Bill Hanrahan took it over. So.
Oh, Bill took that over?
Bill took that. Oh, yeah, he was that. We'll get down when you report on human trafficking. But yeah, he was the one that was doing the work there. And, so we do have an opening there.
We'll leave that open because, like I said, I think we've got around that. Traffic and e-bike, and we've got. Okay, what I'd like to see maybe is if you would go back on e-bikes, because I will tell you why. There's been so much great enforcement in the city by OCSD that they've kind of nipped it in the bud to some extent. And you were big on the education part of it. I wanted to see that continued. I think that does need to be continued and addressed. So if you would go back on that, and maybe with Scott, because he's knows about getting the ambulance info or the injury info and all that. I think that would be a good, if you'd agree with that.
Yeah, I thought about that, and really I think the important part right now, the immediate thing is safety for children and young people, not so much adults. And that, now that AB 2028 that allows the state to fund educational organizations, high schools and so forth, and other organizations that understand safety.
Well, and e-bike shops too.
Well, clearly they fall under that, and they may be able to fund them some way or another. So, yeah, they should look for funding. Try to work with the middle schools and the elementary schools, because of the children, they are now riding a lot of e-bikes back and forth to school, and they mix with traffic with their parents picking them up. That seems to me to be right now where we have to place the emphasis.
And, if you contact one of our people in training for city council, Mark Enmeyer is a teacher at the high school, and he's really into this e-bike safety thing. And I'd give you his contact info, and he would be a good inroad at the high school to work on that. So, okay, so Charlie and Scott on that. So let's see, let's review here. Disaster and communications preparedness is going to be Nick and Charlie.
Right.
Homelessness is going to be Rick with an open on the other side of it. Legislative review is going to be Rick and Scott. Statistical information and review is going to be Scott and Nick.
Is that the technical you say?
Statistical info and review.
Stats, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Neighborhood watch is going to be me and Mike on the subcommittee for now, and then we have an open, and we'll see what happens on that. Technology and review, Charlie and Nick, staying the same. Human trafficking is going to be me, and then an open spot. And then traffic and e-bike safety is going to be Charlie and Scott. Anybody have any issues with that? Does that sound like we're good to go?
Do you want to be on the e-bike thing? Because you were pretty interested in that last.
You know, I'm the part of it I was interested in. I think it's just been addressed, and I think the education part of it and the getting. You went around to the bike shops and got them all started. I applaud you for that. And I think you should continue to do it. And I've got a lot of other stuff to do. I'm fine with the workload I've got, and so is that. We're all agreed on that? Okay, great.
Sounds good. Yeah.
We can show that then. All right, now we're moving on to the updates. Is that right, Adam?
The updates for each of the work plan projects, or?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so communications and disaster preparedness, Nick?
Okay, is disaster preparedness, as you see by presentation, SDG&E, they're a player in the thing. Next month, I got booked Southern California Gas Company. Interesting that I was able to determine and verify is both of those companies are under Sempra Energy. And I didn't know that. It's crazy, you know. They control energy in Southern California pretty heavily. So anyway, let's see. I'm working with Kyle Kroger, pardon me, on mass care sites. We're going to meet. We're talking with him tomorrow regarding. We're going to try to work out something where we find out how to designate officially some of these sites, specifically city sites. Let's see here. On communications, Bill Krudinger has been working, trying to get our communications links together so that the RACES program, the amateur radio.
Amateur communication emergency. Yeah.
There you go. Can work with the city on the thing, and in the past, back in let's see, 06, they had a thing where they were the South Orange County Amateur Radio Association was authorized by the city council to lease some property in the city so they can run the repeaters, but we're trying to do an in-house thing so we don't have to deal with this leasing thing. So Bill's working with Jonathan Lightfoot on that. We'll have more next month on that. Yeah, pretty well. It's
homelessness. There's nothing. We came out with the latest numbers. There's nothing that we're working on specifically from the public safety side. If you want to give an update now and you're into it, that's fine. You're going to wait till the end.
I can give an update on homeless outreach.
That's,
Yeah,
sure, I think everybody'd like to hear about that.
Yeah, so the city has hired a second community outreach worker that started last week. They're going to be trained for a couple weeks, and once they're finished, then their shift will cover Saturdays and Sundays along with some other days of the week, so that we have more coverage over the weekend specifically. The outreach numbers were presented at the last city council meeting, and those are always available online under the city's homeless, it's on the About Us page under homeless resources. And they are actively out there engaged and working with the Orange County Sheriff's Department, park rangers, and our code compliance staff to address issues and provide outreach.
Okay, very good. The legislative review, and I've got a couple of assembly bills that came up and actually were shared with me by Chief Benfield, and a couple of them were very, very interesting. We'll play a game here. I'll tell you the proposed bill, and you tell me whether it was signed in or not, okay? These are real. Assembly Bill 2644. This bill would prohibit law enforcement officers from employing threats, physical harm, deception, or psychological, manipulative, interrogative tactics as specified during an interrogation of a youth 25 years of age or younger.
Veto.
No, it is approved.
I'm gonna say no, not voted in.
I will tell you that was signed by Gavin Newsom. And the interesting, Charlie's he's thinking ahead. The interesting thing is, this is what the millennial generation has done. Now at 18, you're not an adult. You're not an adult until you're 25 years old. I guess that's the average age when somebody moves out of their mother's basement, so. And as far as the threats and all that, I mean, I didn't know that was even being done to adults anymore. No,
I think they're talking about subterfuge.
No, but they talked about employing threats, physical harm.
Threats and doing it are two different things.
I know, but there's a comma after threats. Threats, comma, physical harm. I mean, that's awesome. Okay, so,
But it didn't say trick and device, right?
then you go, no, subterfuge, whatever that word is, yeah, isn't that?
Did they include that?
Yeah, it says manipulative interrogation tactics. So, I mean, that's what it is. I don't, well, anyway, we were split on it, so very good, okay. So, there's another one, okay. This is AB 2773, requires beginning January 1st, a peace officer making a traffic or pedestrian stop to state the reason for the stop before asking any questions related to a criminal investigation or traffic violation, unless the officer reasonably believes that withholding the reason for that stop is necessary to protect life, property, or imminent threat.
Okay, I go for it.
I'm sure they passed that one,
That bill was signed into law.
That sounds
Okay. And that's gonna kill the motor officers, isn't it? They usually try to just not say anything until they come out to it. They say, I ran the red light.
So it's how fast
You think you were going?
you lie.
Oh, that's great. Well, okay, here you go. Here's an interesting one. This is a Senate bill. 925 was actually initiated by Senator Bates, who's running for supervisor. Requires drug testing in addition to alcohol testing in all fatal occasions.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah. That was signed by Gavin Newsom, and I was a little surprised on that one. That there was a lot of no's, and he signed it anyway, which is, I think that's great. So, and that's it. You guys did very, very well. I congratulate you, and
That's a very entertaining approach.
You like that?
Makes me
wakes
you up and.
Well, any little things we can do for you. So
Thank you.
We may have done good, but I'm not so good that we did any good for our society with some of those things.
well, you'll have to look long range. We're working on it. Exactly. Okay, Neighborhood Watch Project. Okay, here we go. I'm going to be pounding my fist on the table now because I know there's going to be some good info.
Where's your shoe?
We were ready to go, And all we need is that link on the city website to where when we do this, and I just talked to Jaden Smith yesterday from San Clemente Times, because he's ready to write a huge article and really promote this neighborhood watch. But we've got to have something on the city website when we say go to the city website, that you hit it and it sends you someplace besides coming soon. How are we doing?
I believe we have everything done, and we're just waiting for some information from the sheriff's department about what it takes to be a block captain.
Doesn't Lisa already have that, like up on a brochure or something?
I'm not sure, that should be an easy ask.
Yeah.
I didn't know you guys were waiting on ours.
I thought we had that with the McGruff, the crime dog and all that, those slides we had, wasn't that on there?
No, not specifically. In that meeting, you requested that we reach out to Lisa at OCSD. I think we're just waiting for an email.
That's been updated. Several things have, well, everything. The link to the map is there, everything. The only thing we're waiting for is input from Lisa. I reached out to her on October 5th, and she said she'd get back to me when she had time.
Easy.
October 5th, okay, so you can contact Lisa and we can get that done. Awesome, so maybe by next meeting, it might be
once we get that information, I think it's a matter of hours.
Okay, that's great news. Okay, thank you. Human trafficking project, we had a town hall meeting on human trafficking, and I would say it was pretty successful. We had, I don't know, we had 70 people, 75 people there. All walks of life and interests. We had a really great panel. We had a moderator who actually has written a couple of books on the subject that did really, really well. She's married to a police officer, as a matter of fact. She's got a lot of interest. We had the OCSD, was it Sergeant Schaefer? Is that who that?
Stafford.
Okay, and he brought his couple of investigators with him and supplied some really good information. We had a victim of human trafficking, and she was enlightening. And we had a guy from the school who talked about possible things that they see and do and try to get information enough to see if these things are going on in the family style of human trafficking. So I think it was a great event and well done, and representatives from Congressman Levin's office were there. Assemblywoman Davies sent somebody. Oh, by the way, I'll tell you about that afterwards. Mayor Pro Tem Chris Duncan was there. Mayor Pro Tem Howard Hart from San Capistrano was there, and Mayor Gene James was there. And it was, like I said, it was really well attended, well represented, and I did let people know that the Public Safety Committee did work on it, and that you were out of town and worked on it alongside, and they showed the awards the hotel's going to get and all that. I think it was really, really good. One of the better town halls I've been to. So, and now we just have to work on the last little phase of how we get the hotels involved and awarded. And that's, I think Brenda Wells is working on that, and I'm sure she'll have it, and Todd also will have that figured out. So that was that. The next would be traffic safety and e-bike update. I think we just actually kind of talked about what's happening. We submitted some plans. The OCSD started working on it even before the plans were submitted, and they started really cracking down on the Saran electric motorcycles, which are a major part of the problem. It wasn't even e-bikes, it was kids on these Sarans that were street illegal. I know you impounded several of them, Chief. I even saw one coming up to a meeting a couple weeks ago where Bruno had one stopped out there, and I think you were calling the tow truck. I think that's really, really helped. Going back into school has helped. Summer, the kids aren't all out and about. And I think the major stress now should be on the education in the schools, getting schools involved in our education plans, and the bike owners putting together a plan for them at point of sale.
The point is, while I was there, I observed a couple of sales of e-bikes, and the parents are there with the child, the young person, girl, and they're offered several bikes, and invariably they will choose the bike that has the biggest tires and the most power. and they're under 16, and, you know, and they go ahead and they sell that. The owners of these shops really need to know that they're not supposed to be doing that.
Oh, there's some like class 3 e-bikes?
Yeah. So I've seen that, and so, you know, there's some education needs to be done, and it probably won't be well received by some of the shop owners.
Well, you've got
Need to do that.
Marcus who wants to help you spearhead this,
Yeah.
and they don't even sell class 3s.
Yeah.
I'm never really sympathetic to that, so that should be.
And again, the emphasis, at least I think, is with the schools and those organizations, yeah. Okay, that's it.
Very good. Okay, review of urgent matters. Do we have any urgent matters anybody wants to bring up? That being said, no. We'll go to committee members. OCSD, Chief Benfield. It even says Captain Benfield on
Yeah, I apologize for not looking
Jeez,
at
I mean.
Look at the rank on his collar, and you can tell he's a captain.
Well, but he's really our chief, though.
That's right.
And they call him
Same. You can't go wrong.
The cheer says chief on it.
So I missed the last meeting, my apologies. And so to recap, and you guys were touching on some of it, since then we did a human trafficking operation in one of our local hotels, something we refer to as kind of the John sting, where we kind of targeted the would-be sex purchasers. They made 5 arrests. They had, I think, 20 to 25 responses to the ad that we placed. So a successful operation, lower numbers than we see typically at the other cities that we do these in routinely. Significantly lower. I think they arrest 20 to 25 people a day and get much, much higher traffic on their ads. I think that's a good thing. And our people were out-of-towners who replied to our ads and showed up and got arrested. They were, as far as I know, I don't think we had any San Clemente residents in that. So good on that front. And that rolled right into the human trafficking town hall that you guys held, which again, I was out of town for that, so I missed it, but I heard it was well attended, well received, and I think we got some good information out there in addition to Brenda's network. Aside from that, it's really been, the last 6 weeks has been burglary centric on the public safety front. Captured everyone's attention with this uptick in residential burglaries, and particularly people are focused on the criminal signature that we see where entry is made from a greenbelt or undeveloped entry through the back of the home by way of window smash, oftentimes second story entry. So a unique pattern. We made an arrest a couple weeks ago. You guys are probably aware where 2 people arrested, 2 got away, who fled the vehicle. They turned out to be foreign nationals and linked to this group that commits this exact type of crime. And in fact, one of those had been committed, which is what they were leaving when they were stopped by, attempted to be stopped by our trip team. Tomorrow, I think it's been mentioned, tomorrow there's a public safety town hall here, 6 o'clock. So I'll put that out there, and unless anybody has any, you wanted a flock.
Yes.
So the flock installation has begun. I started receiving emails from Flock saying, hey, cameras are on-site inspection this day, installation on this day. And so I think last week, the first 2 or 3 went up. We don't have access to them yet. The system, at least the first phase, needs to get in place. But once those start showing as being active, other agencies, both in Orange County and beyond, have seen those, and we've had several requests from San Diego Oceanside to Riverside asking for access to our system, which will provide much better opportunities to apprehend suspects before they get too far away, as we have this kind of reciprocal relationship with Flock access. Be able to almost track where these suspects are going, or at least have a direction. So we're looking forward to that. I don't have a timeline for when the next ones are going in. It's kind of, I'll get an email saying on this date they're going to do the inspection, on this date install, and then nothing again for, well, since last week. So we'll see, but at least we're making some real headway and they're actually going out.
You know, I think that the it's so extended, this whole project on this thing. The mayor should jump right in for ribbon cutting.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a great suggestion. That's a great suggestion.
Spend a lot of money on this thing. Now, an expert part thing, we're still, obviously that's part of the plan too, right?
Yeah, the request was for 6 additional cameras to cover all the ways in and out of Maxburg Park. That was just voted on at the last city council meeting. They approved that kind of contract amendment to Flock. to cover the additional cost for that. So that will be added in. I don't know if that's on Flock's phase 1 or phase 2, but we'll be confirmed with that.
Who are you training to deal with the information that comes in from those things, or set up whatever the algorithms are to identify stolen cars or whatever? How are you handling that?
You know, it might be, well, we've had a Flock demonstration, right, probably prior to my arrival here, was probably 2 years ago. Public safety community never had one. That might be a good.
Didn't Jesse come in and show some, he had a good presentation, a lot, yeah, it's been so long.
It's been so long, I forgot.
It was about 15 years ago, I think. And they were Instamatic cameras, that flash bulb went off, but they're probably different now.
Well, I can tell you that so many cities from Sheriff's Department have taken on Flock and had them installed, that now our IT department is managing Flock for the whole department. So in addition to San Clemente, I will have access to all other Orange County Sheriff cities that have Flock, and almost all of them have them now. And the ones that don't are looking at it. So I think it's going to be countywide, and it'll all be one system. So what can happen is when a vehicle gets inputted, say it's a stolen vehicle, anytime it passes the license plate reader, all the deputies in that area will get the notification. So everyone in San Clemente, all the deputies will get the notification at the same time, and we'll be able to look for that vehicle in real time. And it doesn't just have to be stolen. It could be suspects of crimes or other, want this, ID this person or stop this vehicle related to this case and call an investigator. Those sort of things can be set up. It's going to be a great tool.
If we can get it.
It's coming.
When we get it.
It's coming, right?
That ribbon's coming. Okay, fire service, and I apologize to actually both of you. We really usually try to get out here by 5. This was an anomaly with don't. You see, they're not
We
going
need
to
to
come back
clarify
now.
the record. This never ends by 5.
All right, never mind. Fire services.
Yes, and I apologize, I have to run in a second for a city council meeting spiel, but from the fire department side, it's been somewhat of a slow start to the season, which is really good. We did have our first view of the light Santa Ana winds this past week, but nothing really happened within the region, which was good. Some small starts throughout the county, but we got on those real quick. We didn't have any big. We had one response down in the Pico area, but didn't end up getting any fire, which was good. Just kind of getting prepped up for the fire season. Everybody's in county and staffed up for that. That's pretty much on that note, just kind of getting ready for that.
Great. Well, yeah, you came in right at the right time because it was a busy summer. And
Perfect.
And Rob was always, he had lengthy reports on the whole state, so cross your fingers. Okay, Marine Services.
All right, Rob Malott, Marine Safety Captain. Council, at last council meeting, AB 1672, which allows Ocean Lifeguard to work at the pools. With the concerns with some of the pool hours being closed, council passed a resolution. So it allows Ocean Lifeguards to work at the pool without having the pool certificates for up to 1 year. So that opportunity exists for our current lifeguards, so hopefully some of that relief will come to the pools as well. Contacted the state lifeguards that pass that opportunity on to their seasonal staff as well, and the Orange County Lifeguard Department as well. So hopefully the pool will be getting relief soon with that passing. Another to ride the coattails of the survey for AB bills. Have you guys heard of the Fast Food Relief Act?
Have not.
Okay, well, that got signed. So did get signed by the governor, and so those who work at the fast food employment will now go to $22 an hour, starting January 1st.
How much more is that than lifeguards are making here in the city?
Yeah, so that's interesting.
Retention could be an issue. It's just out of curiosity.
So part of that is we were able to bump our pay to $19.15, stay within the same salary range for a short relief, which there is a class comp that will be done for the seasonals sooner than later. At the last council meeting, they did talk about that. So in lieu of, typically we have our Ocean Lifeguard tryouts in end of February. We are conducting them November 6th. So I encourage any of you that know any physically fit people that would be interested in employment. One of the best jobs that you can have is as a lifeguard. Chief Mall over there used to work with our department, so just trying to encourage him and his son to come on board. But I guess he's an entrepreneur that's out there making some fast money in different ways. But anyways, we are having tryouts November 6th, 7 a.m. You can apply online or you can apply the day of. Starting pay is $19.15. Our training, once they get past the physical portion of it, there's an interview that day. They get invited to our academy. Our academy will start March 4th and go 5 consecutive weekends, finishing April 2nd. So put the word out for us. And since the last meeting, we've had 39 rescues. Proud to say, drownings, 785 prevents, over 353 ordinances, and over 140,000 beach visitors. Water temperature has ranged anywhere from 65 to 73, still around 70 degrees. We have had quite a few Arizona visitors for their fall break at the beginning of October, but outside of that, we're down to about 13% of our levels for summer staffing, so running about 4 people a day during the weekdays.
Has there been any interest on your beach guards going up and actually working at the pools?
Yes and no. Some of those, it takes a different person to work at a pool than it does the beach, so they like the activity, they like getting out there, making those rescues, prevents, making contacts with the public. It's a little bit of difference going to the pool. So
no running on the deck.
From the outside agencies, there's been some interest. There's more I've heard from the outside than from the inside.
Awesome. See, Rod, with the city council elections coming up, we're going to have 3 new members on the city council board, and I'm just wondering, to increase the pay for your staff, which sounds like probably we need to do to keep people coming in there. Is there anything this committee can do to help you with that? Can you prepare in the past some kind of explanation for why and a justification for that you could bring to us? And we could take a look at it and then pass that on to the city council that we think that's really necessary.
Well, the city council, thank you. The city council has approved for class comp, so that is in the motion, right? So that would probably be the best way to see the end result is there, and that's where the council would vote on whether or not to approve the recommendation from the consultant.
Okay, so you can do that independently then. Whoever writes up this, or what's the criteria for that?
Well, they're going to take similar cities and see what
okay. I got it.
and then they're going to go through job description, all the details of the title. So there's a few things that that we want to do differently. Looking at an Ocean Lifeguard 1, Ocean Lifeguard 2. That would have different skill sets, then also having like a possibly an EMT incentive, holiday pay, and also bilingual pay. So there's different things I would like to push for through this class comp, and we'll see if that's something that would be acceptable by.
Yeah, your job is not like a lot of other locations that have the kind of responsibility you have. So you should get those things in there. I don't know what they are, but make sure that it's just not, well, this city pays that much and this city pays that much. It should be a lot more than that because you guys do a great job, and the city really depends on the tourists coming in here economically. So yeah.
If I could speak to Committee Member Hightower's remarks there, I completely agree. We should be shooting for paying our only internal public safety agency. We should not be looking at them being middle of the road. We need to look at them as a premier public safety agency and compensate them accordingly. I'm brand new, so I don't even know if I'm speaking to the area of responsibility or the scope of this committee, but I'd just like to agree with and support Committee Member Hightower's thoughts there. And as we do a class comp, I really hope that the entire compensation package, not just wage and benefits, is considered there with incentives or different classifications of a job, like you mentioned, lifeguard 1 or lifeguard 2. Let's take that all into account, because we are in a recruitment and retention crisis in all of public safety, and we have to do everything we can to attract the best to not only apply but to retain them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the reason for having our recruitment done in November. I don't want to get to the end of February and start training and go, wow, I'm short-staffed. Up and down the coast, Seal Beach was short 5 to 8 lifeguards. Newport Beach was short a dozen lifeguards. Laguna held 3 tryouts, 2 academies. Orange County lifeguards in a similar position. The state needed 30 lifeguards last year. So we're a small department, and so, we need, in the past, 5 to 7. This year, if everyone says they're gonna go, it could be as much as 10, maybe a little bit more. So that's part of the reason for making tryouts earlier. So if I don't have the numbers that I need, then have to hold another one before we do start training. Because having a small operation, we can't run an academy during the summertime. We need everyone on board. So I do appreciate the support.
City Council is very, very responsive to this. That's one reason they're not going to send it to us to ask us what we think, is they think they should get paid. And as soon as that study, survey, whatever comes back, I think the City Council is going to do right by marine safety. I really do. So.
Great. I hope so. Something that is in our scope, can we ask city staff, specifically social media, to help the Marine Safety Division publicize their recruitment? Just from our own experience, social media is how young people are job shopping, and if we can increase that engagement with the publicity through social media, I think it would help tremendously through the city official platforms.
So thanks, Scott. I can address that. So we do promote that on city social websites. So on Instagram, as soon as the announcement was made, there's a post on there. Today, there should have been airdropped a video. The association also has an Instagram account that does it separately, but a lot of times it coattails what we have official city. Then it's also recruitment. It'll be a press release that's out. We make announcements on our cert tape. It's on the webpage. It's also on the California Surf Life Saving Association, where there's an employment page where it lists all the agencies up and down the California coast as well. But thank you for the support.
Okay. We're going to go on to reports from committee members now. Scott, anything you want to address?
No, thank you for the welcome with open arms, and looking forward to working with all the committee members, with our public safety partners. And thank you for the trust from council.
Nick.
I want to thank our newest member for putting his hat in the ring and going through the kabuki dance of the orals and all that stuff. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming on board with your experience and all. And I appreciate all the work that everybody's been doing here. It's looks very, very successful. So thank you. I've pretty well done everything here.
Charlie.
Oh, well, I thought just for the people that perhaps listened into this discussion we've had today, I talked a little bit about what the fire department does for the city. I went through the statistics the other day and looked at it, and basically if you rank what they do, the most calls and so forth, medical aid is number 1, and then traffic incidents, and then service calls, and then fires. And folks, my age are kind of interested on, well, what do they actually do on these medical calls? Well, in the last first and second quarter, there were 216 calls for cardiac assist, 290 calls for strokes, 487 calls for falls, miscellaneous, which mainly basic psychological issues and so forth, 400 calls, traffic collisions 166. And they do fires, there were 82 fires so far. And it's amazing, this statistically, almost the average events, each one of those repeats itself every quarter. It's not going up, and it's not going down. Yeah. That's it, Rick. Thanks again, Scott, for your service too.
Okay, a couple things. Was that Tolega Town Hall? Was that since our last meeting? I can't remember.
Before last
Did we talk about it last meeting? And then we, yeah, okay, good. We did have the Nationals, what did they call National, what was that thing yesterday?
National Night Out.
National Night Out, that was it, okay, and that was, it was really nice, it was at the community center this time instead of up at the sports park or Maxburg, so it was very nice and small, and people, the OCFA that was just here had big fire engine, were giving out plastic hats, we had the sheriffs, and they brought a couple of horses that kids could pet. I guess they were supposed to pet them, I guess, so they were petting them anyway. And the senior volunteers, and they had the CERT guys out there. Nick, you wouldn't believe, they had like equipment everywhere and polo shirts and ball caps. They looked like freaking a SWAT team.
That's what the neighborhood involvement is.
It was very, very impressive. And then there was a couple other neighborhood groups, and lifeguards were, I'd get the best for last. And I want to say, I walked in, that's the first people I saw walk in and go, the lifeguards, they were state lifeguards. And these guys are all wearing these dress blues and are all dressed up. And then I look over and there's one guy, and it's where all the kids were around, all the women. It was the guy wearing the red shorts and the blue jacket and the flip-flops, and that was our city lifeguard was there. And with the biggest hit, it really, really was. I mean, as soon as they saw him, everybody gravitated to him. It was really, really, really fun. So, great event. If I can get you guys all on like the crime and safety page in San Clemente, you will see these events. You will know way before the city talks about it. We come on there and promote this, so we'd like to see you there next year. What you can come to if you have time is we're having the Crime Town Hall meeting tomorrow. It's at the community center from 6 to. No, it's community center.
Did they change it? They were going to hold it here, but I'll
Oh, wait.
I believe it's being held in council chambers.
Oh, is it? Oh, well, there you go. Well, I would have been at the wrong place. Okay. Oh, no, you're absolutely right. It is in the council chambers. Now I remember. Okay, so it's going to be here, 6 o'clock. Originally it's supposed to be 6 to 7, but Chief Benfield has said he's staying a little bit longer, so it might be 6 to 8. It's going to be a lot of what you heard today, except just whatever people want to address and talk about. And we used to have these town halls once a year, and we haven't had one in a while. And so it's going to be really, really good. I say everybody should come by if you have a chance and listen, partake, whatever. I think it's going to be a good experience. At least for us, it'll be a good experience. I don't know we'll see how it is on.
It will be standing remotely.
It might be, you know.
I've been getting from folks up at Tolega.
Oh, good. Well, good, because it's an opportunity for everybody to come in the future, long after Chief Benfield's gone. We'll be doing it once a year again, where they give the crime stats and give an update, and then the public has a chance to speak. And although I will tell you that I believe Lori Davies is going to be here tomorrow night.
Really?
Yeah, herself. I believe she is going to be here. We're stacking up in some dignitaries that we didn't know we were going to have. I know Scott, the city's attorney's going to be here. You hadn't planned before. So where it was going to be something, I guess originally people thought it was just on the Tolega burglaries, and so there wasn't much interest. Well, it's going to be on all crime, all facets. So I think it's going to be very, very informative. So if we can get her, that would be great. Again, thank you, Scott, for signing up. Thank you, Mike, for coming by, and we're seeing what your role might expand into. We're going to get an interpretation on that. We should know that soon. And thanks for all the hard work everybody's done. And with that, Adam, if you have any updates.
No, just the next city council meeting, the council will take up the issue of replacing or reappointing another fifth member of the committee. So we should have an answer on that by next Tuesday. We have a new code compliance manager that's starting on Tuesday of next week. And that's it.
Okay. So with that, we have, I guess our next meeting is scheduled for November 22nd. Is Does anybody have a motion?
Yes, I have a motion. Like we should adjourn to the next regular meeting of the Public Safety Committee. It's scheduled to take place Tuesday, November 22nd, 2022 at 3 p.m. City Hall, Council Chambers at 910 Calais Negocio, San Clemente.
I'll second
Before I ask for a vote, I want to just bring up the fact that the reason we're in this chambers as opposed to our little room is Mayor Pro Tem Chris Duncan, a council meeting ago, brought up the first meeting they had here said that we should share this with the committees. And then our Mayor Gene James made that happen immediately. So I just want you to acknowledge that's why we're sitting here. And I think it's a great video. I'm really happy to be in here. I think it gives some more legitimacy than being down next to the coffee machine. So anyway, with that, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor of adjournment? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0. Thank you very much.